going to start with a really simple question. You both grew up to some degree in print, publishing, books, magazines, obviously then digital publishing. Why podcasting? What is it about this form of storytelling that attracted both of you?
Well, Scott, I'd say there are two things. The first is this moment when a new medium is being created. It doesn't come along very often. Actually, I think the last time was around when we were starting Slate in 1996, and you got to figure out what internet magazines, internet journalism was. And that's so exciting as a creative opportunity, and it doesn't last forever. I think you have to jump at it. But the other is that as someone who's worked in different forms of media for 30 plus years, I've never seen anything like the relationship audiences have with podcasts. It's astonishing. They feel like they know you, and there's this positivity around it. And frankly, it's really addictive, I think.
Yeah.
Malcolm, yeah.
It's a different way of telling a story. And after years and years and years in print, I kind of think it's a better way to tell a story. I mean, there's just a range of emotion you can capture. There's an intimacy you can capture. I was just this morning recording one of the episodes for season 4 of Revisionist History, and in the heart of the episode, I'm interviewing these two sisters who wrote a book together, and we're talking about the subject of the book, but midway through you realize you've forgotten about the book and you're just interested in the relationship between the two sisters because they're hilarious, and they go off on a tangent, and one is trying to compliment the other and the other one's having none of it. And you would never do that in print. You'd never have that moment.
Right.
But in podcasting, you get to sort of be in the room with these two hilarious women kind of gently making fun of each other.
Right.
That's what I like.
Yeah, you mentioned intimacy, and I think there's been a lot written about the intimacy, the psychology of voice. Jacob, when we were on the phone talking about this event, you talked about evolutionary reasons that we connect with disembodied voice. And actually, I'm going to read something from The Atlantic, which is an article that says, there's a little bit of the movie Her in all of this for me, but voices convey more than language. They convey the identifying markers of an individual. When someone talks, we hunt for clues as to what kind of person the speaker is and what she or he is trying to say. So I guess it's a question of like, is there something, talking to the topic obviously today of trust, is there something inherently more trustworthy about this medium?
Well, I think there is, and it's really interesting. I mean, when you look at it, there's no fake news in podcasting. There's no Russian disinformation in podcasting. And why is that? It's partly because I think you can't intentionally spread something. Podcasting is opt-in. It grows organically. The listeners come to you. You build an audience. And so it doesn't lend, it's not viral, which makes it harder to develop something, but it also means it's not subject to the same kinds of manipulation. And then I think it's to that point, I think we've evolved in a way to detect falsity in voices and hence to trust voices that we've grown accustomed to.
Malcolm, I think it'd be arrogant of me to try to summarize your career in a few words, but I think a lot of what you've tried to do is have us challenge our assumptions, which again, playing into trust. And I think even with Revisionist History and the Brian Williams episodes, which I just listened to, and obviously others, there's a sense of like, don't necessarily, what you think is true may not be true, or to the degree there is an objective truth there, but challenge what you believe. How much is that what you're going for, and what are you trying to accomplish with Revisionist History in particular?
Well, the real reason for Revisionist History is just for me to do whatever I want to do. I mean, we have an excuse, which is we're going on in the past, but I'm basically just kind of like in the coming season, I take the LSAT with my assistant. We go mano a mano. And is there a kind of grand reason for that? Sort of, but really I just wanted to take the LSAT with my assistant, see if I could beat her. But no, I think that the thing that is really fun about it is that you can play with tone. I've never been able to play with tone before because I've been in print, and that's the one thing you can't, it's really hard. You can do it in print, but it's hard, right? Whereas there's an infinite variety of tone you can play with in a podcast. So I can give you an idea that challenges you, but I can tell it to you in a way with one eyebrow raised, and my eyebrow's raised.
Right.
And so you're like, you can get in on the joke, and you're like, oh, okay. Or I can tell it to you deadly serious. I can say, this is the way it's going to be. You know,
Right.
you can do all that, and that's what I think makes the podcast experience or the revisionist history experience as fun as it is, because there's that variety.
Do you see, how do you see these different mediums you've worked in kind of working together? I know you have a book coming out in September, Talking to Strangers, an audio book and a print book. Is this just one's a version of the other, pick one or the other? Or is there some way in which they can, or that you see these mediums beginning to like play off each other and become a total experience?
Well, I do think that people, the youngest generation, do not make a distinction between, they don't buy someone's books or listen to someone's podcast. They like someone and then consume that person's content in whatever form they can get it. So I think we're coming to the stage where those barriers are beginning to fall a little bit. But I think at the same time, I think people are attracted to the notion that you can consume different varieties of someone. So, for example, I'm much more, I don't think of myself as a massively funny person. I'm not funny in print, but I can actually be kind of funny in a podcast. And so you get funny Malcolm. You never got funny Malcolm before. He was out there, but he was hidden.
That's a good point. Jacob, let's talk about business model. Podcasting's been largely an ad-supported game so far, but there's obviously some moves such as Luminary, which I think is one of your partners playing with paid models as well. Where do you see it shaking out?
Well, there's tremendous goodwill around advertising in podcasting, partly because the advertising burden isn't that high. You don't spend that much time listening to ads. And partly because we have the old-fashioned format of the host read from old-time radio, and Malcolm in particular just has a ball doing these, and really gets into having fun with them. And it works really well for the sponsors. It works really well for the listeners. People, dare I say, like the advertising. That is not true everywhere in media. And it's something precious I think we want to hold on to. At the same time, in a few years, I don't want to be in a business that is only supported by advertising, because we've seen that movie around digital news. I don't think it ends well. I think we have the kind of audience that's going to be willing to pay for the content, and we want to start experimenting around paid content. But I don't see it as opposed to advertising. I see them as very much symbiotic.
Do you think it's going to be more like a Spotify model where it's either or, pay a premium, get rid of the advertising, or do you think it's more of a magazine industry, both two revenue stream model?
I'm not sure, and I'm not sure we know. I mean, there is a certain basic logic to free with the ads or pay without the ads, but I'm not sure. I mean, we did that at Slate. We developed this Slate Plus membership program, and probably the most popular benefit was you could get ad-free podcasts. But you know what? A lot of people wanted to hear the ads. They like it's sort of part of the show. And some people, Malcolm again being the example, you don't want to miss the ads. It's as good as the show. So I don't know. And it may be. I mean, if we can take both forms of revenue, we'll take both.
Right.
Okay.
So
Can I?
Yeah.
Can I boast about the ad I did this morning? I write them all myself. I'll just say that. This was for an online furniture company article, and the whole thing is they cut out the middleman. So the whole ad is about who are these people who wanted to be middlemen, like who graduate from college and wanted to do a career in middlemaning, and why do we feel compelled? Are they so persuasive that we always have to use them? And
Right.
go on this long riff, and then the tagline is, "Talk to the hand, middleman." How good is that? I wrote that in like 5 minutes.
So
Sorry, I'm cracking. I'm not supposed to crack my own jokes.
funny, Malcolm. How much?
Also, no one has said "talk to the hand" for like 7 years. That's the best part of it.
They're trying to put you out of work,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. I know what you're talking about. But how much, going back again, trust, and from the point of view, we just heard it from these insurgent brand marketers, how do you build trust against incumbents as a startup? Same thing. I mean, unless I'm wrong, it seems to some degree at least you want Pushkin to be a consumer-facing brand, because when I listen to Michael Lewis and Against the Rules or Revisionist History or Broken Record, I'm hearing at the product of Pushkin Industries. So you're putting the name with it. How do you, from scratch, is it the individual shows that will create the trust with audiences, or can Pushkin create trust, and how do you go about that process?
I think we're splitting the difference a little bit. I mean, the shows are the brand. Malcolm Gladwell, Revisionist History, Michael Lewis, Against the Rules. We want the show to be the star, we want to be the studio or the label, but we would like to be like one of the great studios or labels, like HBO. We want Pushkin to be synonymous, not just with high quality, but with a certain kind of show, and we would love the idea that you liked a Pushkin show, you want to listen to more Pushkin shows. But we don't want to foreground it too much. We want to foreground the shows we're making.
Right. So you guys have been friends for 30 years, am I right around that? And I think actually lived together at one point. Or why go into business now?
I don't know. Why not? Like, it's like really fun to go to business with your friends. I mean, I've been, isolated for years and years. Now when I go to work, I just hang out with Jacob, which is like, if you know Jacob, that's an ideal scenario for, a fun couple hours.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, funny Malcolm Gladwell and Jacob Weisberg.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you.